So I am going to talk a little bit about explaining what kind of research is supported by the Indian Council of Medical Research, and particularly for our extramural grant calls. We, for many years, have been focused on descriptive research, which is the burden of disease, the causes, the risk factors, the mechanisms, etc. However, now ICMR is funding wholesome research in 4 areas that I'd like to explain. The first one, of course, is descriptive research. What I mean by descriptive research is exactly what I said earlier, which is that it tells us about a problem. How much is the problem? What is the cause of the problem? What happens when you have that disease or that conditions? And what are its implications and complications? And what are its risk factors, etc. So it tells us everything about the epidemiology, the burden, the risk factors, the determinants, and the complications and the final implications. So it describes a problem. To give an example, this was the first type of research we required to do when we were in the COVID pandemic. We did not understand what this new disease was, who was it affecting, how many people were dying, what was the cause of this so-called this respiratory illness that was occurring. We found out all those answers. We found out that it was something which was caused by a virus. The virus was a coronavirus. The clinical course of that was clear. Then we found out who was dying. It was not affecting children as much, but was affecting more adults and elderly in particular. And what were the symptoms? What was the death caused by? And what were the complications? So unless we understood that, anything else was difficult to do. So that is what is the first type of research, the descriptive research. But this is followed by or is accompanied by discovery. So you need to find out what is, for instance, in coronavirus, we found out how was it entering the body, the marker, what was the target through which it was entering, the ACE receptor, etc. We found out how was it being transmitted. We found out so many things about the disease, and we discovered how could we make a vaccine, for example, with the spike protein, etc., etc. So there were certain discoveries during the pandemic and some that were made during previous coronavirus or SARS-CoV-1 period or MERS pandemic or outbreaks that was used to move further. So in addition to the research on the description, it is important to have the basic science research or the basic research or discovery research, which is very, very important. However, there are two more types of research. The third one, which we call development of solutions, development of products, health technologies, including vaccines, therapeutics, devices, or any other intervention that will help you solve the problem that you have described, and the basic fundamental discoveries help you to make these development of these interventions. So in COVID, our development research, for instance, was to develop a RT-PCR test, a point of care test. So we could diagnose people with COVID. We also had the treatment, which means what was the role of, let's say, dexamethasone, or what was the role of remdesivir, or role of anything else that we thought was useful, but we found to be not useful as well. So we used the development research to then come to the solutions, whether they were in terms of diagnostics or therapeutics or vaccines. And the development of the vaccines was a very important step in terms of how we were able to fight the pandemic. So the development research yields the final products or the interventions that are useful in healthcare, whether for prevention or diagnosis or treatment or rehabilitation. Finally, we can do all that, but yet not be able to reach everybody who needs the care. So what I mean is, these all interventions finally need to be delivered to people. They need to reach people. And there are various obstacles, largely in the health system, which do not allow this to happen. Systematically studying those barriers, challenges, as well as facilitators that are currently stopping us from reaching people with the interventions that are available is what we call delivery research or implementation research or operations research, action research. There are many different types of delivery research, but all of them are essentially to make sure that whatever we have in terms of healthcare is actually those interventions are reaching the people, and how can we systematically learn and then implement and evaluate whether that is actually happening. So a balance of descriptive, discovery, development and delivery research is what the Indian Council of Medical Research hopes to achieve. The descriptive research is more of describing the problem, understanding the problem. Discovery, development and delivery research focuses on finding solutions to that disease condition or health problem by basic science, then translational science, and then eventually delivery science or implementation science, thus leading to a complete cycle of healthcare technology, healthcare intervention, development and scale. Thank you.